Hello and welcome to another episode of Novice Debate 101. We are back on my old 2AC file because we're going to go through creation of a speech document. So once again, hopefully you have verbatim installed. Ideally, you really should by this point because it'll make things a whole lot easier for going through these types of things. And if you don't, then we'll hopefully talk about some examples for what you can do instead. So today we're going to be going through a little hypothetical. So we read this 1AC, the Zinco reform, which obviously this is not on the Arctic topic. And so don't worry about like this specific affirmative. We're just giving you an example of what you should be doing when you're prepping this type of stuff. So the 1C we're going to say had a let me make sure that I've got this stuff in here to answer. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and say that the the negative team in the 1C, they read a disadvantage and they read a counter plan and they argued the case. So we'll go ahead and start with the case. So when we're in the 2AC, when we're on the affirmative, we want to make sure that in the 2AC, we're bringing the case back to the top. Like they might have started with disadvantage and then counterplan and then they argued the case, but we're going to bring the case back to the start of the debate. And so we'll go ahead and go to this new document that I have created. We'll go ahead and go to the debate tab. We'll create a hat. Sure. We'll create a hat that just says case. And then we will go back to this. Go ahead and grab this 2AC overview. Boom, 2AC overview is on the document. We're going to read that. But then, once we do our overview, they made some case arguments, and this is where we're going to respond to them. So let's go ahead and see what case arguments maybe they made. Maybe they made an argument that says drone proliferation is inevitable. I have an answer to that here. It's just a analytical argument. And so we'll go ahead and copy that and say answers to drone proliferation is inevitable. They say drone proliferation is inevitable. We aren't attempting to prevent drone proliferation, blah, 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 blah. Say they also made the argument, because this affirmative case tried to say that the United States should do something, and then it said that other countries would follow after the United States. And so this no modeling argument is the negative, saying that the people won't follow the United States' lead. Like they won't do what the United States does when it comes to the Zinco reform. And so this is an answer to that no modeling argument. So we'll go ahead and copy this 3-point answer. They say that there's no modeling, there's no spillover. And we say that that's wrong. 1, 2, 3 reasons. Copy that. Go to the document. And then boom. Answer to no modeling. And say that those were their 2 case arguments. Now this is on our file. Maybe another team made this argument and we are prepared for it. But they didn't read this argument in this debate. So we do not need to read this argument here. We only need this one, and we only need this one. Say we also are prepared for this. This wasn't finished, so ignore that. But say they don't make this argument, but someone else has made this argument to the point where we prepped it up, we typed this out. They didn't make this argument, so we also don't care about this. Case extensions. So that's the overview. That's the case answers. So case extensions. Let's say their disadvantage said that. Okay, we don't have that card. That sucks. Say their disadvantage said that we cause climate change. This card isn't highlighted. In an ideal world it was. I didn't read this affirmative too much. It's just the first one that I was able to find in my files. So let's say pretend this card's highlighted. Pretend their disadvantage said that we cause climate change. So maybe on the case, we didn't read a card that talks about climate change, but we do say that we cause more hegemony. And this card says that hegemony causes people to cooperate on solving climate change. So maybe this is a extension of the case that we might want to read. Hold up. We'll follow what we've been doing. So we'll go ahead and grab this whole block here. And then when maybe we don't want to read these because this is an older card and it's talking about Trump being the president. So we don't need to read that because that was from the first presidency. And so now we've got what we're going to talk on case. So maybe that's enough. Maybe we're like, this is good for case. And so they had two arguments that they read in the 1 in C, which was, we'll go hat once more because that's the same size as this one. So we'll go DA, and then we'll go CP. Simple. If they have multiple DAs, you'll want to title this. So we'll go ahead and say South China Sea disadvantage, and then states counterplan. Sure, because those are two things I know that are blocked up. We'll go back to this file. So this is the case stuff. Ignore that. Do we want to do the South China Sea disad? Sure. Yeah, we'll do that. So South China Sea disadvantage, just because I know we have a front line to this. We'll go ahead and grab this front line, which has a turn argument and a no war argument. We'll go ahead and put that here. So there's the front line. So those are going to be two arguments that we want to read in the debate. Let's see. U.S. intervention bad. Let's say this one. I like this. We'll go ahead and grab this piece of evidence. We'll go ahead and add that on. And in a more ideal world, if, say, you have a team that reads the South China Sea disadvantage every single time and it's always the same, you can have this blocked up so that you know exactly what you want to read against that specific team that reads that disadvantage. We're going to do this on the fly as a more realistic scenario for debating someone who's reading an argument that maybe we are prepared for but not are specifically prepared for. So this is a conflict escalation argument. This one also says that it causes miscalculation if we try to intervene in the South China Sea. Say that the South China Sea is inevitable right now. So this will be a uniqueness argument. So we'll throw that on there. We'll throw that towards the top since it's uniqueness, and that'll be argument against their uniqueness. So now we have a uniqueness argument and then two link turns, and we'll go ahead and move this defense to the bottom because these are offensive arguments. So we have a uniqueness argument, which says their argument is that the South China Sea is stable now. We say that the South China Sea is unstable right now. And so the plan isn't going to cause the disadvantage. But we also say that the affirmative causes collaboration and cooperation, which decreases escalation in the South China Sea, which makes the impact of the disadvantage less likely to happen. And same here, it says that we are moving away from the direction of increased tensions and miscalculation. And then also defensive argument. So just in case of this straight turn, as it's called, because we have a uniqueness turn and a link turn, which is a straight turn, or rather straight turns a disadvantage into an advantage. We also have this defense that says that worst case scenario, Chinese officials just probably aren't going to go to war in general. So if they extend, if they concede this who cares about the disadvantage? We'll give them a little bit of an out if they want to throw the disadvantage away, because that means that they probably have to throw away the counter plan as well. So next was the counter plan, which was the states. I don't know if that really works. I think I had this prepped up just because people were reading it, not because it was a necessarily good argument. We'll have, not a ton of arguments here, but there were a few few permutations. So we'll go ahead and grab this front line for the state's counter plan. And we'll go ahead and throw that under state CP. It makes these 3 perm arguments and says specifically why Congress, which is what the AF does, and they say that the 50 states should do the plan, and we say that having the federal Congress do it is important. And Krebs was one of the authors that was very specific to our type of drone reform for the counterterrorism topic. And so you might want to make some more arguments here, but this is all I had frontline, because I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, that state's counterplan just wouldn't really work. And so maybe making some arguments about why states can't do the AF because X, and then X will be where you type in the reason, or maybe read a piece of evidence that says, like, legally the states can't do the AF. And so this is how we'd prep that speech file. We would save it somewhere to send it either to the email chain or on the speech drop, and this is what we would be uploading. You don't want to upload this whole file, because if you upload this whole file, then all of these things that you've prepped out, or that one of your teammates have prepped out, is now given to an opposing team who wants to debate against you. And so if they're smart, they will save this, and then they will block out responses to all of these cards and all of these blocks of arguments. And then you'll kind of have to start from scratch, especially if they share it around to other people. It can be really, really bad if you send out the whole document. So make sure that when you're doing this stuff, if you're debating under a packet, I should specify where there's not a lot of stuff that, or not a lot of cards that you can read. It's less big of a deal, but you really don't want to be sending blocks, because that is something that people can prep out. And so you really don't want to send a document that has all of your team's blocks, because then they can prep you out pretty well. So yeah, go ahead and tag that just so it is similar formatting. You might want to add some more arguments to these types of things if this were a real debate round, but this is just an example of what one of these speech documents should look like. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next time.